with fractured fault lines of ambivalent identities. Baintown, Kemp Road, Amberson, and all our inner cities have become enclaves of angry young people and a battleground front lines secured by increasingly paramilitary policing strategies aimed at protecting the economic and social order of things, which ensures cycles of dependence and marginalization. We have to conclude, as Derek Bell, that at some point, even the most non-inquisitive must begin to wonder whether there isn't some hidden connection that secures liberty and justice and economic empowerment for white people on the basis of the subordinate status of black people. We must also begin to question whether there's a correlation between the social decay and crime manifestation in our inner cities and our economic dependence on paradigms of development based on privatization and anchor projects such as Bahamas, Albany, and Freeport, in which Bahamian people are by and large relegated to the status of employed, underemployed, or unemployed, with no control over the natural resources of the nation or its sustainable development. In this social landscape, the aspiration for one Bahamas has very much been an illusion to be pursued, but never attained, a mirage of impartial justice and equality. Such illusions conceal and disguise the inner workings of the official common law legal system and its inextricable linkage to social phenomena such as race, class, and gender, and consequent dynamic dialectical interaction with these phenomena at the confluence of the daily lived experience of ordinary, everyday Bahamians. Beneath the veneer of the tranquil aquamarine pink and gold glimmer of the archipelago, we see a land not of equality, freedom, and justice, but as in other colonial and neo-colonial creations, a land and people in search of national identity, having been denied holistic and sustainable national development, and having been fictionalized by the, I should have said mesmerized by the alchemy of the imperialist colonial and neo-colonial misadventures of history, and the mesmerizing contradictions flowing from an increasingly globalized postmodern reality of 21st century Bahamian society. A social space based on state of physical and mental health, and in which the inherent contradictions in Western societies of racism, sexism, ethnicism, class inequalities, social injustice, chauvinism, xenophobia have created a massive crisis of identity in the globalized postmodern context of the white Western world. In this regard, we see that even though the beautiful pink pearl has come to characterize the Bahamas, it's indeed very rare and cannot be found everywhere in the archipelago, and could hardly characterize its historically harsh and brutal realities. No doubt, this must have been foremost in the mind of the author of the Bahamian national anthem, Timothy Gibson, when he warned of the wide and treacherous shoals, which are prominent features of the archipelago's geological and socio-legal and historical realities. Perhaps he was also conscious of these realities when he beckoned the Bahamian people to lift up their eyes to the rising sun, which we know to be in the east. Given Bahamian socio-legal, political, and historical realities, and the origins of the overwhelming majority of Bahamian people in the African continent, and many ordinary, everyday African descendants in the Bahamas remain far removed from the dispensation of common law justice, and that in the absence of fundamental and revolutionary legal transformation and comprehensive social reform and distributive justice, the idea of one Bahamas could hardly stand as a token of fiction, creating a cruel mirage of equality, rather than a holistic universal access to the dispensation of justice founded on a bedrock of equality and relevant to the diverse needs of the multicultural and plural social realities of postmodern Bahamian society. Understanding this matrix permits us to decode the social realities of Bahama land, a land in which there are the haves, who live in resplendent circumstances and duly enjoy the Bahamas of this Bahama land, residing in palatial homes in grand-sounding places as Lyford Key, Old Fort Bay, Albany, Paradise Island, and the growing number of gated communities for whom this is the best of times. For them, As our Ministry of Tourism officials have been declaring at some time, it's better in the Bahamas. Their future is seemingly assured with grand-sounding billion-dollar anchor projects, characterized by extensive land grants and unlimited access to the bounties of economic prosperity. However, there are also many more have-nots who live in inner-city shacks and shanty towns. They are increasingly unemployed, landless, and disempowered, and their world is marked out by realities of poverty, for whom this is the worst of times. One Bahamas, rich and poor, able-bodied and disabled, male and female, black and white, empowered and disempowered, with plural realities and a fractured sense of national identity in an age of wisdom, a time of increased indigenous scholarship with greater academic opportunities, and an age of foolishness, political agendas, driven by done deals and finger-pointing, rather than informed, collaborative nation-building and decision-making by Bahamian politicians. In the epoch of belief that our liberated destiny will be a just society based on principles of equality of opportunity for all, and an epoch of incredulity in a seabed of dreams and illusions and the madness of the disruptive divisiveness of the Bahamian political process. The season of light, the election of a black American president, with promises of hope, transparency, and a belief that yes, we can make this a better and safer world. And the season of darkness, the harsh reality of business as usual, with the same old American brand of warmongering foreign policy based on the principle of bomb, and bomb some more. And in the Bahamas, a clear lack of accountability by all the political parties and a meaningful consultation with the wider community, often being denied a participatory role in the political process. The spring of hope, the hope engendered by promises of sunshine governance, characterized by transparency, empowerment, and social justice, and the winter of despair, the depressing reality of an ever-widening chasm between the rich and the poor, an intensifying sense of hopelessness and inertia. When we have everything before us, and we have nothing before us. And an era when the catchphrase is democracy and inclusiveness, but the reality, as always, is that some are more equal than others. One Bahamas, a tale of two cities, separate and unequal. Fractured realities of an illusion and the enigma of being. Thank you. This one.
How does the situation in the Bahamas differ from the situation in all other nations and throughout the history of time? When we've seen this occur throughout every race and every ethnic in known history.
We see.
Why is it so different?
But it's not different, it's interconnected. And it began here. This is where Christopher Columbus came. This is where the misadventures began. Columbus came here, he was a dumb geographer. I mean, he really was dumb. He didn't know east from west. I mean, he went west to find east. If he could choke, somebody, a couple of years ago, Professor Jan Karum gave a lecture here. And he said, if you throw a coconut from Europe, it would have floated here in the Bahamas. So you didn't have to be brilliant to come here. So the whole era of colonial racial differentiation began here. Back in the time, during the time of the Spanish, there was when they were decimating the Tainos, Casas was the defender of the Taino people. And there was a debate